Intensifying conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan is dividing NATO allies. The clashes over the region of Nagorno-Karabakh have been the fiercest since the middle 1990s. Fears are growing of a regional war that might draw in Russia and Turkey. We're going to talk in depth about what's going on over there with Ambassador Meher Margarian, Armenia's permanent representative to the United Nations here in New York. Thank you so much for joining us, Ambassador. I really appreciate you doing this. Today, and in the past couple of days, France has been sparring with Turkey over the clashes. President Macron has sent a very clear message to Turkey that these warlike messages are not going to be accepted by France. At the same time, we see Russia as well, pointing to the foreign interference, and Reuters just reported that Turkey is sending foreign fighters to fight in the Nagorno-Karabakh. How concerned are you from foreign interference and outside forces slowly taking part in what's happening right now?
Well, thank you for this opportunity to share our position here. We are very concerned about the involvement of the foreign fighters in the conflict zone. As you rightly have mentioned already, there are many credible reports pointing out to the involvement of the foreign terrorist fighters and mercenaries, and there have been calls from the side of the international community and also from the Minsk group co-chairs to make sure that these foreign mercenaries, which are actually being recruited and transported with the support and encouragement of Turkey, and we have to name the names here, they have been very destructive element in this conflict and need to be encouraged to stop their activities and transportation of these foreign terrorist fighters into the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict zone.
Ambassador, a lot has been said about the timing of the eruption, or if we can say re-eruption of this conflict. But what can you tell us about the timing? Why now?
These belligerent actions of Azerbaijan have been preceded by many years of dangerous rhetoric of hate speech and Armenophobia, openly and consistently promulgated by Azerbaijan at the very highest political level. The leadership of Azerbaijan has been promoting hate crimes and glorifying hate criminals. At the same time, they have been spending billions of dollars to acquire deadly offensive weaponry and openly threatening the people of Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh with promises to use force. So it comes as no surprise, and if you have followed the statement made by the Azerbaijani leader just last week at the General Assembly of the United Nations, it was not only a textbook manifestation of a hate speech, but also what we come to realize now, in a way, a declaration of war against the people of Nagorno-Karabakh with a clear genocidal intent. The offensive also comes amidst a global crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic. When the international community is focused on fighting disease, obviously, one would think that Azerbaijan has decided to take advantage of these global vulnerabilities caused by pandemic, also in light of internal instabilities that they are experiencing. So this is not just an attack against Armenians, but this is also an attack against the basic norms of humanity, an attack against what the United Nations stands for.
Speaking of the United Nations, Secretary General Guterres called, of course, for the cessation of all hostilities and for all the parties to come together to the negotiating table. Of course, both Azerbaijan and Armenia refused to come back to the negotiations. What can you tell us about that? What will it take to sit down and negotiate? And is that a possibility to start with?
Well, Armenia never refused to sit for peaceful negotiations. We have been on record of encouraging the participation also of the representatives of the elected authorities of Nagorno-Karabakh to sit down with Azerbaijan to have a peaceful talks. But you refer to ASG's encouragement and call for the immediate return to negotiations. The Secretary General indeed called for immediate return and to stop fighting and de-escalate the tensions. But it doesn't seem to be the intention of Azerbaijan to follow that call. Because we also have to bear in mind that the Secretary General made an appeal for global ceasefire, calling for pulling back to hostilities. At the time of at the early beginning period of COVID-19 pandemic, back in March, he was calling for pulling back from the hostilities, silencing guns and stopping artillery and ending airstrikes. Armenia strongly supported the Secretary General's appeal and was among the more than 170 countries supporting it. And apparently Azerbaijan not only refused to unconditionally support the Secretary General's appeal, but also resorted to large-scale military aggression.
What is the role of the Minsk group today in the circumstances we're living in? Is it still capable of containing the dispute? Do you expect the members of the group, France, US, Russia, to overcome maybe their differences over other conflicts and maybe rally behind Armenia? What do you expect from this group?
Well, the Minsk group co-chairmanship remains the only internationally mandated format to mediate the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And when it comes to the conflict, the co-chair countries, they have expressed on several occasions their unified position on the principles of the resolution of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And they have made it clear that the hostilities need to stop. And recently, if you have also followed the recent statements, the co-chair countries also call for the external actors and foreign terrorist fighters to be removed from the conflict zone. And I believe it is clear who is the addressee here.
What do you think Turkey really wants in all of this? And what's your message to the international community on how Yerevan expects the world to deal with Turkey right now?
We see the Turkish involvement as another attempt of exporting instability to our region. We have been observing increasing engagement of Turkish military in the conflict zone, and this is something that needs to be condemned by the international community. The destabilizing record of Turkey, be it in the Eastern Mediterranean, in Middle East, is well known to the world.
How much of this is about the importance of the strategic importance of the region being a corridor for oil pipelines that distribute oil to the world markets all over the world? How much of it do you think has to do with that important fact?
The situation, if Azerbaijan and Turkey are not contained, may lead to very, very dangerous escalation, and the consequences can have devastating impact on an entire region and beyond. So Azerbaijan and Turkey must come to their senses and heed to the calls of international community, including the recent calls by the UN Secretary General, and also bearing in mind of yesterday's UN Security Council outcome to the press and needs to commit to peace in good faith.
The consequences you mentioned, everyone is worried about the possible consequences. Can you tell us what they might be in a little bit more detail, the consequences?
Well, as I said, we are already observing the growing military actions, and with the reports that are coming also with the involvement of hundreds or thousands of the foreign terrorist fighters, it can lead, as I already mentioned, to the very destabilizing, not only destabilizing effect, not only in our region, but well beyond it. So I would repeat by saying that the international community should send a stronger message to those engaged from the outside, encouraging Azerbaijan and to Azerbaijan itself to come to senses and halt the military aggression.
Talk a little bit about Karabakh, Ambassador. How do Armenians feel about the conflict in that region that has consumed decades of their lives and cost thousands of lives, actually, and the displacement of many? What's the presence? Tell us a little bit about the presence and the consciousness of Armenians and the importance of this region.
Well, Nagorno-Karabakh people have exercised their right to self-determination back in 1991. And they have all the right to live in their ancestral historical land without fear or foreign coercion. And at the core of the issue is the right to self-determination, which is also enshrined in the UN Charter. And they have exercised this right by way of referendum back in December 1999, in accordance with applicable Soviet laws of the time and also international law. So Armenia, as a guarantor of the security of the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, will take every measures to defend their inalienable rights. And Armenians around the world, they are very strongly united on this matter, because we as Armenians cannot allow another genocide to be perpetrated against the Armenian population in course of this Azerbaijani military aggression, encouraged and supported by Turkey.
What about the United States? The United States has not prioritized the Nagorno-Karabakh since 2001, I believe. Do you maybe issue a call now for Americans to take a more active role?
Well, the United States is one of the co-chairs of the Minsk group, and we very much appreciate their role and engagement along with Russia and France. And the United States has been vocal on the recent escalation, calling for immediate cessation of hostilities and discouraging external actors from getting involved in this conflict. And we would very much wish to see a stronger engagement together with the other co-chairs of the Minsk group format.
Do you see that now, the region being what it is right now, with all the conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean, the conflict with Iran, whom your prime minister talked with the president today of Iran, do you think all of that might be an incentive for the United States to actually move the Nagorno-Karabakh up its priorities now, list of priorities?
Well, we hope it is in the list of priorities, and we hope that, as I repeat, in case of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, the co-chair countries will continue to have a unified cohesive position as to the principles of the resolution of the conflict.
I have a question. Who wants this conflict to escalate, Ambassador? Who's benefiting from this conflict?
Well, it's hard to say who would benefit from this conflict, but apparently who instigated this conflict and who started this conflict is very well known now, not only to the expert community and not only to us who deal with the mediating of this conflict, but to the larger international society as well. Because as I was trying to say in the beginning, we have been observing years of accumulation of military equipment and weaponry of an offensive nature by Azerbaijan. We have been observing the escalation of hate speech and hate instigation of hatred against Armenians, not only those who live in Nagorno-Karabakh or Armenia proper, but Armenians in general all over the world. And those are very well documented facts that have been also strongly criticized by the international human rights organizations. And it's no surprise that in his address to the General Assembly, the Azeri president singled out several prominent international human rights organizations by way of criticizing their record in condemning the human rights violations in that country.
Finally, can you send a very direct message to the Azeri president? And just
the message to the Azeri president, in fact, was sent several times by the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, when he made it very clear from the early days of becoming leader of Armenia that any solution to this long-standing conflict must be acceptable to the people of Armenia, to the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, and to the people of Azerbaijan. And he was also clear in mentioning that it should be without prejudice to the order of which people are concerned here. This has been very strong and important message, which was not only not reciprocated by Azerbaijani side, but instead the recent instigation of violence by the leadership of that country gives us no any assurances that they are able to reciprocate such a call. So the message has been expressed clearly and loudly by the Prime Minister of Armenia, which is unfortunately which has not been reciprocated, and this recent reckless attack and aggression against the Nagorno-Karabakh leaves us with no much hope that it will be reciprocated anytime soon.
So do you think in the end, the fears that we started the introduction with, the fears of a war that would draw in external forces and other countries is real, do you think? Where do you see this conflict going?
The fears of what? I think I lost.
The conflict growing into a war that would draw other countries into it. Are we really scared of are we talking about the possible all-out war here? Are there real fears, you think, of that?
Well, if they are not contained, as I said, if Azerbaijan and their supporters are not contained, what we are observing now is already a large-scale escalation with the use of all the heavy weaponry in the arsenal. So it should come as no surprise that if the tensions keep growing and if the aggression continues, then it might have a dangerous spillover effect. So the international community should take all the means, and we appreciate the Secretary General calls. We appreciate that the Security Council have sent a unified message that the hostilities should stop, and the external actors need to be withdrawn from the conflict zone.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Margarian, Armenia's permanent representative to the United Nations. I appreciate so much you doing this, and I hope you have a great afternoon and see you again soon.
Thank you. All the best to you.
Thank you.